I'm passionate about this, though 25 years of primarily information technology, BPO services that I've done. The last 10 years has been primarily on healthcare. About 6-7 years I've been focusing on the pharmaceutical life sciences business. The last 3 years on a broader healthcare, specifically on the provider and payer. And that is, I can tell you, having gone through retail, manufacturing, this touches your life very clearly, and therefore gets passionate every day you work on this environment. I thank you again for all of you in giving this opportunity for the 15 minutes to share my thoughts around cloud. The session today here is on cloud, and I got up today morning at 5 o'clock and having first call with my colleagues in the US. It is dark outside. Half an hour later it was still dark. Looked outside, it was cloudy, and I did one more call, and then after I got ready I could see the drizzle coming in, and hopefully it'll come to a rain. And so we know the benefits of cloud, and that's not new to us. The concept here we're talking about is cloud for healthcare and what is in it. So the way I've structured it in the 15 minutes is a quick background of what is cloud so that we can level set. This is not a session on cloud. There are different views and sessions that you can have. But to level set some type of what is cloud and some definitions of what cloud is. We are also covering the global arena of how cloud is used in the global situation, with a lot of focus obviously in the US, where we've seen that happening, and then taking it back to India with a case study, and then some recommendations or thoughts that I have, which I'll conclude with so that we can open up for questions at the end of it. This, what you see here, I'm not sure about the quality of what comes in, how you can read it, but if you look at the IT, the healthcare IT adoption into healthcare, it was wave 1, wave 2, wave 3 going around from 1950s to 1970s. I thought we were pretty much on top of the rest of the industries in terms of catching up on what IT can do to the industry, healthcare in this context. But somewhere around 2000 is probably where there is a loss of IT catching up with healthcare, or healthcare catching up with IT, and there are lots of things that has been happening now with the Accountable Care Act in the US, meaningful use. There is expected changes that is going to happen in UK. I do believe there's a lot of changes happening in the last 3 years. And I could see that in the last 2 years. I've been tracking the Indian market. There's a lot of change happening. But clearly we are about 10 years off from the rest of the industry. Now, I got to put that as a word of caution. It's not that the healthcare is not innovating. It's not that the healthcare is not focusing on innovation. Information IT in general has worked a lot inside the industry, be it on the medicine manufacturing side, be it a chip on a pill where it can go inside your body and start tracking how it goes around, or be it into robotic surgeries, or be it into several methods of imaging which was the size of a room is now can go into your backpack and go to rural villages. There is innovation that is happening which actually has advanced healthcare, but information technology into healthcare is where there is a lag, and that's what we're talking about today. But having said that, there is clearly changes in the market, global market, and I could see that in India, is the power of centralization. There is multiple ways. Hospitals are becoming bigger. We, for the first time, seeing that it's not one large hospital in one city, it is always one hospital group reaching out to tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 cities. We are seeing micro hospitals concept, which I'll talk a bit about, growing across the country, serving the masses. All this requires centralization, standardization. Naturally, IT is a friend for such scenarios. We are seeing IT resourcing issues because of the growth of this in a sudden spurt. You obviously will have resource crunch, and again, centralization of IT is a standard way of resolving these resources, and this other industries have solved it, and we are trying to get that into the healthcare world. And obviously the topic of the day is cloud, which is what I'll cover, which healthcare has adopted, but it's got a lot more way to go. Couple of slides on some, I would say, a 101 on healthcare on cloud, right? On cloud. anything that you cannot touch and feel, it's out there, fuzzy, but serves your purpose and you feel it, is cloud. That's as simple as how you could define it. That's why we call it as cloud. So we are using cloud a lot, even today, in any which way we want. Everybody of us is carrying a smartphone, and the smartphone has got so much capability that you never had 5-10 years before. And not all of that is in your smartphone. You don't even know where that's coming from, but it's somehow reaching your smartphone. And that is cloud, as an example. But if you look at definition of cloud in terms of the way it is available or way it's offered, you could talk about these layers, and logically it's an infrastructure which is the basic hardware not available with you. Everything else, you know what is it. You can touch and feel the rest. That's infrastructure, which is today the Googles and Amazons, they're all providing their capability today. In a public space, there is a lot of local smaller providers also in the space. Platform of a service is a little bit above an infrastructure as a cloud, which provides certain capability, certain platform, if you will, that you can build on, and it is available in that forum. So you could take the SFDC, if you've heard about the Salesforce.com, as an engine which can you can build multiple things on top. You can also use their CRM, could be a good example of that environment. And then the most prevalent, and what we will talk about today, is the SaaS platform. It's a software as a service. What was originally considered as buying software, installing it in your data center, and making it available to all your employees and customers is now available on demand, pay-per-use, and that is software as a service. If you look at the different slice of cloud, there is the private cloud, which is an extension of your data center, but it is cloud technology so that it can enhance and grow within your environment, but it's privately held. And then there's extreme other end, where it's public, which is used by anybody. You can just buy, anybody can use the same thing. You're also taking a piece of it. Of course, you can put security layers on top, and there are different ways to manage it. And a community, which is probably a good choice for the healthcare community. We're talking about government agencies helping in their healthcare community portal could be a part of the cloud solution that we can look at from a community perspective. And then a combination of hybrids where you take one as a base and then extend into a public when you want to have a burst beyond what you already have. Or combinations thereof could be a hybrid. I'm moving to the international market, specifically the US market. This is hot off the press. We have HIMSS representative right here. I pulled this out from the HIMSS report, which came in June, just last month. And it's a good relevance to what we are talking about here. There was a study about 1,500 healthcare providers being surveyed. About 150 responded. And that's the response here. Are you using cloud today? 82% say yes, this is US market. So this is here for real. People are using it. Now, this question was very large because it doesn't mean that all your hospital operations or your lab operations are on cloud. It is, are you using cloud? The answer is yes, 82%. The interesting thing I saw, it's a 12-14 page note. So the interesting thing I saw as we go down into that study is that people who are already using cloud, which was the 80%, if you ask them, hey, what are your challenges now that you're using cloud? What challenges do you have? It's spread across. You see the 20%, 19, 16, they are all over the world in terms of what issues they face. It could be, I don't have visibility, I have customer service, I have cost issues, I have uptime issues, which is something that is being consistent, and I couldn't migrate my data out of it. And so these are typical challenges with any environment that you face, and it is spread across. But on the contrary, if you look at only those small segment, maybe the 12% of people who are not in cloud, you ask them, why are you not in cloud? The first thing is security. So the question is, people who are using cloud don't see security as an issue because they know what it is. And people who don't use think that security is an issue. It's a very interesting point there. Of course, there are certain things about availability and uptime which actually is going to improve as and when the cloud providers and the infrastructure availability on telecommunication gets better. We'll see get better at that. But the contrast of, is security a major concern? Yes, but only as long as you didn't want to jump. Once you make a jump, it's not an issue. And I'll probably take offline discussions on that if we need to talk more about it. Switching into the Indian arena, This is a combination of what I could pull from data. This is the difficult part where you don't have statistics very clearly, and I'm looking for agencies who could help us get all the registrations and structuring done so that we can pull in more structured data. So this is a rough data of what we could collect from all the sources that we can see. It's still predominantly, if you look at the number of hospitals and setup, it is predominantly a privately run scenario, which makes it easier for changes and transformation. I'm not saying that government would not change. It takes the time, as what doctor was talking about. It's easier for the private community to adopt because there are benefits in what I'm going to cover in a couple of slides next. If you look at the annual spend today, it's about 500 million on healthcare IT. As I said, I'm excluding what is core research and core healthcare delivery. This is about information technology. What we see on the green side is that we see that though the industry is expected to grow at 15%, we expect the information technology usage in healthcare is growing at 25%, which means we are catching up. And this is, again, the prediction of what I've seen from people and our own scenarios of what we see. We feel that of that, about 45% or 40%, 45% can be on the cloud. And therefore, there is a lot of potential, a lot of direction already in the way, and it's important that if you are not considering or if not thought about it, maybe it's a good time to think about it, because even in the Indian scenario, there is a lot of movement happening. This is a case study I picked up. My friend who's a CIO here, Hari, a Nova Medical Center. The story of this place is that they had, I think they started with 2 units, which is a novel idea of bringing in surgery in primarily a daycare setup. And they wanted to focus on a very specific environment, but take it broader into the tier 2 cities and probably into tier 3. So take the capability to where the people are and the patients are, but at a cost we can afford, and it's still a business model where they can survive. There are lots of requirements of that, but IT is critical because, one, you are setting it up in multiple locations. Each location starts by the day or by the week or by the month, and practically there is a plan that they were opening a new center in exactly a month. So the IT system should go up and running in just a week. Cloud is an excellent opportunity for them to cash on, and that's what they did starting in 2009, and this is running on 22 centers completely on cloud. The ERP is on a semi-private cloud, and I'll talk about it as to why, but HIS is running on a pure cloud. And that is a very good story as what you could see, successfully running. And if you look at the cost of IT and look at a similar setup, you would find some of the benefits that I'm talking about realized by this, and the ability to increase the speed in which they deployed, and the ability for them to change as and when new technology comes in. They moved into a new service offering on the fertility side, and it was easy to adopt. They had to get an external EMR for that, or the clinical system for it, and that was also brought into cloud subsequently. So this is, I would say, a good story with a focus that their focus is about patients, their focus is about their insurance companies and corporate employers who are their payers in many part, and then of course the surgeons who are treated differently. They give some kind of ownership into that environment, so they focus on managing that, and IT is managed somewhere out of the cloud. I again picked up a snapshot from the HIMSS scenario to just see what those successful people are using cloud, saying that there is a benefit on. And I've summarized that below for the interest of speed here. It is cost, speed, and staffing. That's the primary 3 things I would say in the Indian context of what you look at. If your cloud option is costlier than your original setup, then don't go for it, because there is something wrong with it. Speed is in 2 contexts. Speed as in time taken to set the technology up at the level what you want within a given time frame. You could practically set a mini hospital in about 2 weeks. Yes, that's what cloud can do for you. I've not seen that happening in a traditional environment. But then speed is also about capex to opex. If you wanted to set up a data center set up choosing software, implementing it, do the data conversion, and the approval process that is needed out there versus a typical OpEx where you just pay per the month. Your approval process inside the organization is much faster. So it's speed from a lot of considerations in actually getting technology out there to the doctors and to the patients. Of course, staffing levels. In the surge of IT in general, staffing is in demand, it is high cost, but then now you add the healthcare component to it and all the privacy and other regulations that is needed, you will find a demand on and retaining those people is difficult. This is one place where a central staffing is taken care of. Of course, there is compliance, there is disaster recovery. I don't know how many hospitals today have the data center covered on a disaster recovery. God forbid, we don't expect disasters in this country, but if for some reason your data center is disabled, cloud automatically gives you the capability, it comes with it. There is obviously mobility. If you have cloud, you're almost ready, you're ready right away on mobility. It's already available, it's not bound by your four walls, so when you are moving out, you have the same access to the data as you have in your environment. It's up to you to restrict that or not. So mobility comes with it. This is my concluding slide out here, which talks about the current trends that we see in India. If you look at infrastructure providers, the cloud infrastructure providers, we already have providers in India. There are global ones who are operating in India, very competitive in India. They are investing on data centers. They're not yet here, but you could definitely get cloud pretty much easy from Amazon, from Google, from Microsoft, from any of the global providers. They are working on bringing data centers inside. So there's a lot of investment going on. Platform is not actually tailored to healthcare, which is, I think it'll catch up. I don't see that as much happening, but do we see why we need to bring that in, and you know, providers like us should start working on that. But SaaS-based HIS, I specifically said HIS, there is a difference in the sense that any software which is currently operating can be put on a remote data center and can be used. It's really not a cloud-enabled architecture. A clearly cloud-enabled architecture is some application which has been built for cloud, is a single instance, multi-tenant. I know I'm using terms which is very close to technology, but that technology is what enables the benefit of cloud, where you could turn on a system and it's ready, up and running in 1 week or 2 days or whatever we're talking about. So it is as good as opening up a Gmail account and all the things that you want, Google Plus and your pictures and photo, everything is all set up in instant, and that's cloud for you. If you want to have the same thing in your application for your HIS, your application should have been rebuilt for it. And there are a few which I see coming up, and they are fairly good, they are scalable, and I think that's good. But the ERP side, which is the back office finance, HR, that is catching up. I mean, there are models in there. Typically you see in SAP and Oracle, but they all have Fusion models, and there are other players who are now in India who are providing cloud-based ERP services. A combination of these two would probably take care of 80% of your IT needs. So who should be looking at a cloud right now? If you are a healthcare chain with multiple groups, you should be looking at it. If you are a greenfield new hospital, obviously don't go for the old scenario. Look at what the new technology can offer, and it is cost, speed, and all those things that we talked about. If you are a mid-sized hospital, all these issues of staffing and other things that I talked about, compliance, would catch up on you, whereas a cloud would probably take care of a lot of the scenarios. It's probably a good option. And the concept of hospital in a hospital, which I see a lot in India over the last 2.5 years I have been searching around, is that you are a brand name and you are specializing in a specific capability, and then you spread your wings not by setting up your own center. You actually go into a general hospital in a tier 2 city and set up your specialty, whether it's a cardiology or ophthalmology. What you're doing essentially is taking all your brand, your capability, your ability, and then putting it on an existing infrastructure which may or may not be at the same level of yours. Now you can move your doctors, you can move your equipments, but when it comes to information technology and the look and feel of what a patient feels, you're not going to get it unless otherwise you are on cloud. Then you could actually take that with you into the other hospital. Otherwise, you are at the mercy of the other hospital, and you end up a lot of time integrating and interfacing, which is wasted time. So a hospital is typically, again, a cloud model.